unusual couple, you know?
Oh, I don't think that was ever in question.
Well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time of day it is, everybody. It is Saturday, February 20th, 2021, and this is the PJCN Water Cooler Chat. And for those of you out there who are posing this question, who's been messing up everything? The answer is PJ. PJ has been messing up everything. I am Maxwell Haddad. With me today is Dan Nye. It's just us today, but that's okay.
That's all you need.
I think
That's all you need.
Yeah, two handsome guys
Exactly.
talking WandaVision on a Saturday afternoon.
It's not like the rest of our channel is somewhere else doing another program or anything. It's
right. Well, a good portion of the
thing.
rest of our channel may or may not be filming something for something else.
Yes, correct.
That cannot be discussed or revealed. Eric was going to join us, but he's not feeling well.
Correct.
Dwayne is working. Jake Berlin is doing stuff. So that's okay. Our two minds are powerful and beautiful, and we can make this happen. Before we get in the episode, a couple channel notes. Tonight, nope, that's not right.
Old one.
Tonight, I don't have the thumbnail. Tonight, there is some sort of something happening on Chris Clark's Twitch. Some sort of mega Mario Party raising money for the American Heart Association. Be sure to check that out. Tomorrow night on the Unwind, we've been talking about it for a while. We're finally going to talk theme parks. The first week we were going to do it was the Super Bowl, so we canceled. Then it was Valentine's Day. But this week, tomorrow, 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern, we're going to be joined by Amber Coates. And I know Teresa will be here and a couple other people, so that'll be a blast. Monday, we're doing a double feature watch along of Eddie the Eagle and Cool Runnings. And what's cool about these movies is they both take place at the same Winter Olympics in the same year. So these events were happening concurrently. And in fact, in Eddie the Eagle, they mention the Jamaican bobsled team at one point. These are both available on Disney+. We'll probably start a little earlier than normal. Be sure to check that out. Let's see. What else we got going on? Wednesday, Suddenly Soundtracks is finally back after having to postpone last week to top pop punk songs. Dan and I are both going to be on that. Tim Franco, David B., James White, and Sully. That's going to be a blast.
It's going to be such a long show. Oh, my God.
It's going to be a long show, but we're going to be celebrating pop punk, so that's okay. Book Nook 2 is almost here. That'll be next Tuesday, March 2nd. It's our February show on March 2nd because in a normal month, March 2nd would still be February. The book we are reading is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. I hope you get a copy. It's a wonderful book. You still have time to read it. Finally, we do have a Patreon. Check it out and see if there's a tier that's right for you. I'd personally like to extend my thanks for your continued support. And I'm going to mention all of our wonderful producers. We got our executive producers, Brandy Parker, Brandon Buckingham, and Ricardo Franco. Our gold producer, Sean Wingblade. And our producers, Tyler Birch, Patricia Carrillo, Anton Putra, Jake Berlin, Molly Damon, Bador, Kale the Youth Critic, Stephen White, Mike K, Chris Pokernoy, and She-Ra Potato.
Yes, thank you.
The only thing I can say to you guys is this.
Well, there's a little bit more. Hold on. I didn't want to interrupt all your housekeeping because it was very well done. But however, oops.
It was you, PJ.
And then I just had to say, oh, wrong one. Clicking too much. So when Dad showed up, we just had to do that. Also, Anton, who's known me all of his life and most of my life.
What's my t-shirt? I'm wearing a Happy Hour with Jill and Molly hoodie. Got to support our friends.
Good on you, Reef.
Yes, thank you for keeping us honest. And with PJ not here, you're still asking what t-shirt I'm wearing.
Yes.
So let's talk about WandaVision. Another terrific episode. To use a quote from the MCU, we're definitely in the end game now.
Yes. Oh my God. I mean, I'm trying to think like overall and like, where do we even start with this? Like if you start, the episode is called Breaking the Fourth Wall. And like,
yeah.
I love things that are meta and self-referential and self-aware. And this particular episode, I was having a hard time like counting all the layers that literally every line of dialogue worked on, and that every part of this particular episode, it's like it grows exponentially. This is like one of those curves from geometry where like things just keep going up and up and up. And as soon as they start to escalate, it's like you can't stop it. So
Right. Well, in terms of the sitcom context, we've sort of reached modern times, pun intended, because the stone of the episode
it's going on to other shows. It's going on to other
Stone,
shows.
which is the marriage of style and tone, is Modern Family, complete with interview segments, talking head segments. But what I thought was interesting is the opening credits. The theme song was very much like The Office.
Correct. That's how.
And the visuals of the credits was very much like Happy Endings. And I was particularly delighted because I'm a huge fan of Happy Endings. I'm still sad it got canceled, but also Matt Shackman, who has beautifully directed every episode of WandaVision, including this one, directed a couple episodes of Happy Endings. So I'm sure he got to have fun by paying homage to other projects he had worked on.
Yeah. Shackman's been, and I think I bring him up almost every week, but like he's been one of those like journeyman TV directors, and it shows because you have to have a wide body of work to literally capture all of the different tones and styles that you're going for. And as far as other homages, I got very strong either Arrested Development or Curb Your Enthusiasm vibes when you're getting Vision and Darcy doing on their hijinks first at the circus and then waiting at the crossroads. You know, more layers right there, just literally waiting at the crossroads.
Right. So, the episode picks up pretty much right where last week ended. Last week ended with an incredible cliffhanger sequence where Wanda extends the perimeters of the hex. Darcy gets caught in the hex. Jimmy Woo and Monica escape it, as well as Hayward and his goons, his sword goons, who have now set up a temporary camp outside of the hex. But Wanda is feeling some remorse over her actions, and she's also feeling like she needs a quarantine day. And I've rarely related to an image as much as this one. And I love that she's still basically in her Halloween costume. And she's just like, I am resting my eyes, boys. But we could sort of see that the fourth wall, as they call it in the episode title, but really the reality that's being created is starting to fracture. We first see it with the boys' video game controllers switching to a bunch of different things. But then, as Mike K here brings up, can we talk about the milk? How do you go from almond milk the best to cow's milk the worst?
I might push back against that almond milk bit being the best, but that's a story for a different time.
I almost exclusively drink almond milk these days.
I'm even more bougier. I'll go with flax or oat just because
I do like oat milk, but almond milk is better for you in the long run. But oat milk is very good. But yeah, so then in the kitchen,
creamer.
Wanda's milk keeps changing. And then later on, even the furniture is changing and changing decades. The TV switches, the lamps change. So all of the different aesthetics she's had in that house as the show within the show has evolved keeps changing.
I also saw I saw online, I didn't catch this the first time I watched, but the cereal that she's pouring is called Sugar Snaps. If you didn't catch that. So another nod in the middle of there for some of the outside bleeding in. So, which there's a lot in this episode.
Yes. Everything. Well, that's the point. The hex, the reality, everything is starting to break piece by piece. And Wanda, I think, is conflicted over everything she's doing and how it's affecting other people. And we'll get into it a little later, but this episode really proves that Wanda is not the villain.
Yes.
I think she is misguided and she's made some questionable ethical choices out of trauma and grief. But we really have two villains. And let's jump around here, and we're going full spoilers.
Of course.
So Hayward is something of a villain, which we all saw coming. He's been shady from the get-go. We first heard a little bit about Project Cataract last week. This week, we get more clarity on what that is. And as we sort of surmised on last week's water cooler chat, Hayward wants Vision for himself to turn him back into a sentient weapon. So the reality is... Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, we also don't get, Hayward, we only get that one particular scene in this. So it's like when you're talking about Project Cataract, and it's literally, I think it's a very specific term. I think we brought that up before, and it's this clouding. I looked it up because I wanted to make sure I had the definition of the word cataract, what causes it. And it's clouding of the normally clear lens of the eye. So what it does is it's literally obstructing your vision. And I don't think that was a very intentional name.
Very deliberate. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so when you have Hayward working on all that, I think they're doing a good job of still like putting those breadcrumbs out there. I think he's going to be a major player in the next 2 episodes, because when Rambo comes in and she says it's all about vision later on, which we'll get to like diving deeper into, I think from her point of view it is, but I also think there may be something more nefarious going on here where Hayward somehow instituted her breaking in and getting vision because he figured out that vision would not work without her powers to like resurrect him. So I got a hunch that that's going to be happening as well. And so Project Cataract, like that may have been just the overall plan to use or to like have vision come back to life, but we still don't know exactly what that is. We've only heard them.
Well, I do agree with this, Mike. I do think when all is wrapped up in 2 more weeks that we will get gray vision. But yeah, so we're increasingly seeing how Hayward has been manipulating the situation and manipulating the information he's giving to other people about Wanda. Like he gave a very convincing speech with video evidence that she's the villain. But nothing is quite as it seems. But the other villain, or so it seems, that was revealed in the closing minutes of this episode in what I can only describe as a tour de force sequence, is Agnes. Look, we from week 1 when we did this show and Dwayne was on, he theorized that Agnes was Agatha Harkness. If you're comic literate, as I am mostly not,
same.
I honestly had never heard of Agatha Harkness before Dwayne mentioned that. So I have seen some conversation of people who are even less interested in superhero lore and stuff. Well, how does this reveal hit? And I would say that even if you don't know the name Agatha Harkness, it's a great reveal because of the way the Agnes character has been used in the show and the power of Catherine Hahn's performance. So even if you don't know that name, you still know that who has been the wacky neighbor this whole time is actually also a magical person. She is a witch. She's been using her magic to affect and manipulate things. And I suspect next week we'll find out more about her motivations. I've done research. Agatha Harkness and Wanda's relationship in Marvel Comics goes back for years and years. She's been a mentor to her. So this is an interesting dynamic. But that sequence. So one thing we haven't really talked about is how every episode has different opening credits and different songs. And all of those songs have been written by Kristen and Robert Lopez, who wrote the music for Frozen and Book of Mormon and Avenue Q and Winnie the Pooh. They wrote Remember Me for Coco. They are hugely talented songwriters. Yeah. They have won every award known to man. And they also wrote this Agatha All Along song, which I think is such an incredible song. Like, I want the song to win an Emmy, and I think it can. But we start to see this montage that's as if it's a new credits for a TV show, where we go back through all the decades and episodes and see Agnes' influence. I found this little thing here showing all her different things, pulling the strings. In fact, she made Pietro go. She was messing with Wanda's neighbor, all of this stuff. That whole sequence, the performance, that song, and it is Catherine Hahn singing in that song, by the way, was so good. I went back and watched that scene like 5 or 6 times. And then that laugh that she gives at the end is one of like the great witch laughs I've ever heard.
Yeah, you think it's a good witch laugh, and then it like you hear the pitch shift and she just goes up into like that next octave, and you're just like, that's a witch cackle.
And she ends it by saying, and yeah, I killed Sparky too.
Yeah. And then you brought it up too, Anton. It's one of those things like, and she killed the dog. Like, if you need reasons to kind of hate her as a character, they're giving them all. I do have, this is just like a tickle in the back of my mind. So she brings up Pietro, but
yes,
I'm still not convinced he's not Mephisto. I'm still,
right.
There's still a part of me that's like, he could still clearly be Mephisto.
There is a lot of chatter in the scene where Wanda is sitting in Agnes's living room and she notices the half-eaten sandwiches and she's like, "Where are the boys?" And And then the camera, oh, thanks. Yes. Once again, Solid Slate coming in with a slight misinterpretation of my
put it
thoughts.
on a shirt. Put it on a shirt. Print it. Go.
I would have less umbrage with having said this and some of the other things you've accused me of, because sure.
Yeah.
I'm not that strongly opinionated about the variety of witch laughs.
Best theme song in the show, maybe.
That I would say, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a shot of a fly or a cicada.
Yes.
On the drape.
Yeah, a cicada or like a roach or something like that.
And I have seen heavy theories that is Mephisto.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's true or not. People are reading too much into it, but I don't think it's just Agnes. Mm-hmm. And in the interest of jumping ahead, this episode for the first time had a mid-credit scene.
Mm-hmm.
A seemingly simple scene. I have an image here. Monica goes and is about to open the hatch to the basement, and Pietro comes up to her and is like, "Snoopers be snooping."
Snooper's gonna snoop.
Oh, Snooper's gonna snoop. Pietro is more than he seems, and I think he is gonna be a villain alongside Agatha. In fact, I think he may be even more of a villain than Agatha.
That's kind of where I'm leaning, especially because of the dynamics that they bring up, and even looking up Agatha Harkness a little bit. I'm curious how, because I don't know much about the character either, and I'm curious if she's like straight up super villain a la Thanos, or if she goes a little bit more like frenemy, like Magneto, to where like there's gonna be instances where she's basically gonna be carving her own path, and like whether or not it benefits or hurts the heroes is one of those things that remains to be seen, which is why I'm thinking Mephisto may be a bigger bet.
Right. Traditionally, from what I know, Agatha is not a supervillain.
Yeah, she's a witch.
So it'll be interesting to see how they do with that. But the MCU has always charted its own course and used characters in interesting ways. And as far as I'm concerned, if this means we're going to get Catherine Hahn in multiple MCU projects going forward, yes.
Do we just want to talk about like again how good the performances are from everyone in this episode?
I mean, what's incredible about the performances all of these main actors are having to do, less so Tanoia Paris, who I still think is excellent in her own right, but Elizabeth Olsen, Paul Bettany, and Catherine Hahn in particular, in any given episode have to play myriad different styles and tones of acting.
And you have to be putting those things like and that's what I said like earlier on with the Benniness, is almost every line that Elizabeth Olsen is saying in the house, even to the kids, like there's 4 or 5 different meanings depending on whether you're looking at it from outside the hex, whether you're looking at it from inside the hex, whether you're looking at it her talking to her children, whether you're looking at her speaking about Vision, who is literally just an echo of himself. I don't think we're actually hearing Vision. I think we're hearing her interpretation of Vision, which is why he seemingly has no memory and more or less no thoughts of his own. But she has such a strong memory of him. She knows how he would more or less react, which is where I think you get a great performance from Paul Bettany too. And same thing with fucking Catherine Hahn.
And they've been perfectly calibrated for each style of sitcom, while also having to break that wall it's just super impressive. In this episode, Elizabeth Olsen's, we'll call it an impression of Julie Bowen in Modern Family, was flawless. Mm-hmm. Like if you close your eyes, just the syntax and cadence in which she said things, I felt like I was watching Claire Dunphy. So just remarkable work. And I hope, I think we saw with The Mandalorian that the Emmys are not averse to honoring the Disney Plus shows with nominations. I hope that this really gets at least Elizabeth and Catherine Emmy nominations.
Yes. I think Catherine could easily win it for supporting.
Well, it's early on, and we'll have to see what else comes out between now and June. But I think she's good enough to win supporting actress in a drama series, because I would assume they would put this in drama. I don't know. It's sort of like on the line.
With drama or I don't feel like there's enough comedy to like push it through to like being. They
could argue that because it deals in the sitcom idiom that it's a comedy, but either way. So this is interesting. Kelly says it seems like she's controlling Pietro, which is why I don't believe he's Mephisto. That's very possible. Mm-hmm. Certainly, she controlled him to a certain point. I still think the identity of that body of Pietro is something that we're going to find out. But But let's backtrack.
I also think they're showing us what they want us to see, which is one of the reasons why I'm not convinced that it's not Mephisto, because it's like the Agatha all along, as amazing as it is, I still think it could be a slight misdirect. Like, I think that like, because I don't trust Marvel or storytelling enough to be like, oh, we're going to reveal
Agnes at this point.
Or Agnes, like you're going to reveal the big bad all along, and there's still 2 full episodes left. I'm not necessarily buying it. I think there's more.
Well, Agnes could be messing with what we're seeing too.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I think there's more.
Imagine if her witch powers extend out to Disney Plus and it gets really meta.
Oh my God.
I don't think they'll go that far, but I would like something.
Happy.
Okay, so as I said, the hex extends and Darcy gets caught in the hex. Now, I wasn't a big fan of Two Broke Girls, but I appreciate Kat Dennings' place in sitcom history. So there's part of me that hoped once she ended up in the sitcom, she would be a waitress. But the reality is she was right on the edge where everything turned into a circus. Mm-hmm. So she's an escape artist. And for what it's worth, Kat Dennings looks damn good in this escapologist outfit, especially when she was bound in chains. I'm showing my cards a little bit.
I was going to say, do we need to delve deeper into that, or is that another show?
And then they think Vision is a clown. And my favorite joke probably in the episode is Darcy thinking Vision is just hitting on her. And she's finally like, fine, I'll go out with you, but I'm ordering the lobster.
It's and that's why I like the meta, because it's parts of it are so sitcom-y and like a little bit less than when we're in the house with Elizabeth Olsen. But that whole, you can tell exactly. You can tell when they're pushing that sitcom vibe, and Vision is still like, he even like plays into it a little bit, like there was a connection, and then it's like, oh, this is a classic misunderstanding.
I would make the argument that everything that happens with Vision and Darcy in this episode is the funniest sequence that the show has done.
Oh my God.
So Vision does the thing where he like puts his hands on Darcy. She gets back. And I think because she had only just recently got into the hex, it was much quicker for her to snap back to reality. When we saw him do it with his coworker a couple episodes ago, he was a lot more confused. And obviously, as we saw in Agatha all along, last week when he did it to Agnes, she was faking.
Yes. Which, again, how impressive. Woof.
Oh. Such good acting. And then to see like the extra angle from it today where she's like, does that little look. I was like, bravo, Catherine Hahn.
Oh, God. I'm so happy. I will just say this. It's been, we'll say 15 years. Like, she had a tiny bit part in Anchorman. Catherine Hahn did. And she has like 3 lines maybe in the
and then a bigger part in Step Brothers.
And then a much bigger part in Step Brothers. But it's been, I'm happy 15, 16 years later, we're getting to see how brilliant she is.
Brilliant.
And I saw a real quick side note. I saw a tweet where she was doing an interview, and they said earlier on in their careers, it was Catherine Hahn and Judy Greer always going out for the weird best friend roles. And I was like, I would watch that movie 10 out of 10 in a second. Them doing like a buddy comedy.
I am a Judy Greer aficionado. I've read her book, I Don't Know What You Know Me From, which is an incredible name for a memoir. But yeah, they're very much of the same
ilk
mold. Yeah, they could play very similar parts, but if this makes Catherine Hahn a household name, amen.
I hope so. Yeah, it should.
But so Vision and Darcy are they steal a clown van and they're trying to get home to Vision's house, and Darcy's answering some questions and filling in some of Vision's gaps, tells him about what happened at Wakanda with Thanos and the Infinity Stones, tells him this, that, and the other thing, and then they just keep coming to like a series of hijinks that are precluding or stopping them from getting home. The traffic lights, and then the construction, and then the kids.
Kids crossing the street.
And at a certain point, Vision realizes that Wanda's manipulating him, and he gives a look to the camera that to me rivals any Jim on The Office look. I have an image of it here. So it's a perfect look from Paul Bettany, but then you add in the extensive Vision makeup, and it's amazing.
And I love that they're throwing in that the character is like, so Vision is literally one of the smartest beings on the planet, and then he's doing the sitcom tropes too, which is so much more of Wanda's control, and he's literally sitting there doing his talking head, and when he realizes it, and they show it both in real time, where he's like, what am I doing here? I have to get to my wife, and like takes his mic off of his cape.
Yep.
And then they show him running into the boom mic, which is funny as well. And then he's like,
So funny.
And then it cuts to him flying out of the truck, and it's like he's probably like kicking himself, like, why didn't I do this from the beginning? Like, what am I waiting for? Like, I like that.
And Darcy's just like, all right, I'll meet you there.
Bye.
Okay, so let's talk about the other characters, and that's Monica and Jimmy Woo. Look, I will admit that us here at the PJ Campbell Network are as susceptible as anyone for populating the theory that the mysterious aerospace engineer might be a big reveal.
Yep.
And I saw some people express severe disappointment and anger that it wasn't. As far as I'm concerned, this was just something that the fans made up.
Yeah.
It was nothing the show ever said.
We made up.
We read into it.
Oh, yeah. We're reading into everything. That's literally what we're doing here.
And frankly, the fact that it's just a general, honestly, is like cleaner for storytelling purposes. Because WandaVision is still just sort of staying in its own context.
Mm-hmm.
If they're going to introduce someone else going forward, I would rather it happen in the final episode or in a mid or post credit scene. Because let's say that had been John Krasinski as Reed Richards, the focus of everything else would have been so askew. But I would just caution, like, and we've talked about this on other shows on this network, like, don't allow your expectations or your theories to ruin how you view something if it doesn't go how you thought it might.
We brought it up at least last week, if not the week before or we brought it up 2 weeks ago on Ramble On. And then like you're saying here now, Max, it's one of those things where it's like, if this is literally angering you, Patty brings up a great point. Anger is extreme. Disappointment is fine. You're allowed to be disappointed like this.
Sure.
But a lot of it is still you assigning your feelings to this thing that you don't create, and the creators don't owe you anything. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, if it's making you angry, that's probably a you thing. And like,
right.
And
like I said, angry. I got fully caught up in the mystery of it. And the way last episode ended with they didn't make it to the engineer, it makes it seem like it could be someone. The fact that it's not is fine. But what they are doing is the aerospace engineer has a space rover for him. This is the best image I can find of it. She says it's our most heavily armored space rover. So Monica puts on a spacesuit, gets in a space rover, and she's going to drive through the Hex. While Jimmy and these new army people are watching.
Good army people.
Good army people, as opposed to the sword people who are not good.
Bad army people.
Good.
Going simple.
Bad.
Yes. And somewhere in the middle.
The area in between could be Agatha.
Agatha
and Wanda. We don't know.
Wanda. Exactly. So
thank you for coming to our TED Talk about ethics.
Sometimes it's black and white, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you're Magneto, sometimes you're Thanos.
Yeah, it's black, it's white. So Jimmy Woo asks the general as Monica's about to drive through, is she going to be okay? And she's like, yeah, this is our most heavily armored space rover. It'll sail right through. Readers, viewers, it does not sail right through. It sort of smacks up against it and then starts to Titanic its way up.
Sure does.
Monica jumps out, and then the Hex launches the space rover, but as it lands, it's been turned into old-timey pickup truck.
No, it was like half of a minivan, wasn't it?
It was weird. It was messed up.
But it was, regardless of how it was, I love those details. Those details are one of those things that like I see on the show, and it hits a lot of points, and it's hitting a lot of buttons to where it's like, you're not allowed in, and this is what's going to happen if you do make it in.
Before we keep going, let's talk about this because I think it's interesting.
Okay.
Mike K said, I got heat for this on my Facebook post, so I'm kind of curious your take. How much do spoilers affect your viewing experience? Personally, I don't consume media for the what. I do it for the how and why. I am not a spoiler phobe. I am not spoiler averse. To me, if knowing the spoilers ahead of time ruins your viewing experience, then maybe the thing in question wasn't that soundly made to begin with. However, for something like this, where it's week by week, I prefer not knowing until I watch it because it makes the viewing experience more fun. But I'll fully admit that before I saw Avengers Endgame, I read a full spoiler walkthrough on Reddit like 5 days before I saw it. Because I was just curious, and I loved the movie, and it didn't, like, knowing what happened didn't affect my enjoyment at all. I think it's okay to be spoiler averse. And you know, I do caution, like, and it's been a problem. Like, this show drops at midnight Pacific, so it's 3 a.m. Eastern. So there are some people who watch it right when it drops, and they're on Twitter, you know, 40 minutes later posting spoilers. I don't think that's the right choice. I think you should have some compassion and kindness and at least wait 24 hours, because a lot of people can't be up at midnight or 3 a.m. to watch this. They may have to go to work and can't watch it till Friday night, which is also why I'd maybe advocate for these streaming services to stop dropping episodes at 12 a.m. Pacific.
So there's a lot to unpack here, and especially I first want to say what you say, Max. I think you're in your headspace. I think is not necessarily how everyone's going to be able to view it. You have a beautiful, objective mind. You're really able to like pull things out and like kind of compartmentalize. So if you read that, that's not going to influence your viewing. I don't think a lot of people consume media that same way. And coming from someone who I have a hard time tempering my expectations sometimes, and this is something I've literally been working on like in real life, and then honestly
you and I have talked about this.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where it's like I've literally worked on this in therapy, because you can literally like it's kind of like tying your own shoelaces, falling, and then blaming somebody else. Like, it's one of those things. You can go online, and the spoiler talk, I know people have literally curated like Twitter, and they'll mute all these words for like a few days.
And it still doesn't work.
And it still doesn't work. So it's one of those things that there's a conversation to be made everywhere. And there's also that desire for people posting spoilers where they're like, oh, I saw this cool thing, I just want to talk about it. I'm part of this new elite group that nobody else has seen this yet. And like, I get that excitement, but it's also somewhat inconsiderate to where if you're posting spoilers without regard to anyone, like there are people who do it correctly. Like you see a spoilers thing and they'll say spoilers and then like 80 dots.
That's okay.
And then like you have to click on it to open it. That's a great way to do it.
I almost wish Twitter could add a feature like message boards used to have or still have, where you could select a spoiler text, so the only way to read it is for the viewer to highlight it or something.
Or maybe like you know, let's work backwards and then throw in some false election claims, and then that way Twitter will suppress it, and then you have to click on it to open it. So that's one way to get around it. But
I want to bring this up too. I think Brandy makes a great point. People watch movies based on real events and don't complain about spoilers because you know the outcome before you watch. That's a great point. A film that I've been singing the praises of that I just watched recently is Judas and the Black Messiah. Incredibly excellent film based on real events that I was familiar with the outcome beforehand because it's an important part of American history and the civil rights movement. But knowing how that ends up didn't make the journey any less thrilling. And in fact, it made the outcome so scintillating to see how the film built to it, how the film decided to depict it. Same thing with the war movie. Like, we know who won World War II. Titanic, we know that ship's going to sink, right? That's okay.
And I was going to say, even like you go back, and one of the things that, so you can almost call spoilers like a half knowing, like going back and rewatching. So if you know spoilers, then you're going to view things differently, but it's no different than a second viewing. I think a lot of times what spoilers do is they kind of taint that first viewing. And I understand where people would be upset about that. I think it comes down to being considerate of others, and people who are aggressively like posting spoilers and saying like you said, like 40 minutes afterwards, there's a way to do it and not like step on any toes is a good way to put it, because most people don't post spoilers maliciously. Or like Dwayne did a great thing on Twitter where he was like, fake WandaVision spoilers only. If there's real ones, I will block you. And that's a good way to like kind of change the discourse and make it your own. But it's one of those things that like, it comes down to a lot of things that we kind of forget about in this day and age, is just be considerate of others. Like, if you don't want that first viewing ruined for you, don't ruin it for somebody else.
Yeah, I agree. But I also think, with weekly television, I understand the notion that people are going to want to talk about it, and that there's not going to be as long of a moratorium on spoilers as there would be with something else. Like, within 24 hours, I sort of feel like if you have not been able to watch it and you don't want to be spoiled, maybe stay off social media. You shouldn't have to stay off immediately right as it drops. Yeah. But, a day later, I get it. People want to talk about it. It's in the zeitgeist.
And also the spread of information is exponentially quicker than it has been in previous. That's the only wrinkle, like Max, you were saying, like, why don't you drop it like hour by time zone? And that's the reason why. So if you drop it.
No, I would just say drop it in the morning.
Yeah, that would work too.
So if they're doing, 9 a.m. Pacific, something like that. I don't know.
There's ways.
I'm a night owl, so I'm generally still up at 3 a.m. anyways, particularly since COVID quarantine started and I'm working from home.
Yep.
When I was going to the office every day, a little less so, although still I would be up till 2 at least most nights. So for me to stay up till 3 and watch an episode of television, I would very likely be doing it anyways. But
Gotcha.
It's not that easy for people who have to be up for a job at 7 a.m. And they shouldn't have to be spoiled by something because someone can't exercise restraint on Twitter until the next day.
Sure.
Reactions are fine.
Yeah.
I love that. That was great. That was thrilling. And then, Friday evening, okay, we could talk about Agatha all along.
Yes, exactly.
But let's jump back into Monica because other than the Agatha reveal, the Monica stuff was the most thrilling part. So let me just say, Tiona Paris is a queen. She was on Mad Men. I've been a fan of hers for a while. I loved her on that show. She is killing this role and this character.
Yep.
And we know definitively that she's going to be in Captain Marvel 2, that she's going to be a big part of the MCU going forward. And I could not be more excited because, on my list of favorite MCU heroes, she's already yeah. So that's the thing. So last week, it was mentioned that Hayward has everyone's blood work and that Monica's blood is changing.
Yes. I think it was a couple episodes and Darcy's saying her cells are being rewritten.
I thought it was last week.
I think it's been a couple because they've been doing blood works. They've been doing tests. I think it's one of those things that.
So we theorized here and others did that if she were to make it through the hex one more time, that she could become super powered in some way. And I'm very excited because my coffee just arrived. L'chaim.
Cheers.
That's exactly what happens. And if you are comic literate, I am not illiterate comically. I am somewhere in the middle. I was aware of Photon. I knew I had a good idea that Monica Rambeau was going to become Photon. And the way they did it was, for me, one of the most visually powerful and engaging sequences of origin superhero-ness in the MCU.
Yes.
So she starts to basically push her way through the hex, which looks like this. She's using an incredible amount of strength.
It's true. She does later on.
Oh, I thought I had another photo.
You had a bunch, didn't you?
Not this one. So then we see her sort of split and we see different versions of herself as we hear her mom talking to her and other people talking to her, which I found incredibly poignant.
Yes.
The way they've crafted this character, really starting with that sequence, seeing her experience in the blip, finding out about her mom, and the fact that, if you've seen the MCU, you've seen Captain Marvel, her mom, you had an affinity for her mom, and you saw her as a little girl, has been, other than everything else, one of the amazing accomplishments of this show. So she makes it through and her eyes are lit up blue, which is just so beautiful. She's such a stunning woman. I love her hair. I love these blue eyes, and the sword outfit's really cool. But she strips it off.
I was just going to say, I think they've done a terrific job as far as the backstory goes, because you don't necessarily seeing Captain Marvel helps. You don't even necessarily have to have seen Captain Marvel to understand where she's coming from. And especially the little nuggets that they've given you as far as Captain Marvel being in her life and being a huge influence. And you get that all just in some great, fantastic visual storytelling in under a minute when she's walking through. And like you said before, that the faces are pulling off of her and you literally see her grief manifested.
Her performance of selling someone fighting with all of their strength to make it through this was impeccable. And also, just in case you're curious, dear viewers, there is almond milk in this coffee.
Well, there is oat creamer in this one.
Well, there you go. We are non-dairy boys.
Fully represented here. Non-dairy in our coffee. Love me some cheese.
Yes. Well, yes. Okay. So Monica has some sort of a change.
I love
strips her.
Before we get through it, I love the line that they literally pull from Captain Marvel, where it's like, I'm gonna fuck it up verbatim, but it was like, she got lucky in getting kids because she received the toughest one, and like hearing that and pulling her all back together, and then she pushes through and gets the powers. It's like, ooh, goosebumps. I love that moment.
I agree with this. I would imagine it has to do with multiple trips, right? So to our knowledge, Monica's the only one who's gone through 3 times.
And half jumping ahead, she doesn't get kicked out this time. So that plays in, I think, because like the last 2 times, like she went
in, she was out, and then she's in again.
So this is the 5th time she's passed through the barrier, if you want to get technical. In, out,
right.
In, out, in.
Right.
So a lot.
Now she makes her way to Wanda's house, and I really believe that she was getting through to Wanda.
Yes, agreed.
She was explaining to her about Hayward, and Wanda at first was like, I don't want to hear about that. But the more she explained, she says, Pietro wasn't us. She says it's all about Vision. I could see Wanda starting to recognize what's going on.
And she also doesn't get, I think that's the other reason that she's getting through to Wanda, is Wanda can't push her around. Up until this point, Wanda has literally manipulated every person and everyone that she's gotten into. And as soon as she sees that resistance, you can see her grow a little bit and start to respect her.
Well, she says, I'm not scared of you. You can't control me. But then Wanda uses her red wispy powers, which I always love. But Monica has a little bit something up her own sleeve. She uses powers of her own and does an incredibly badass superhero landing.
Superhero landing.
Fist to the ground. Had I been seeing this in a movie theater, this is a moment where audiences would have clapped and cheered and gone crazy. Like when Cap grabs Mjolnir for the first time, people would have lost it. I mean, I was like, yes.
I like the subtle, and I like how they're showing her powers subtly. I'm sure I was one of many people. Yep. Like I said that earlier, one of many people who was like, I don't know exactly what Photon can do. So I looked it up, and I think that's one of the things, one of the quick shots we get of how she can view reality now. And it's,
that was amazing.
It was beautiful. I don't think, and I'll just briefly read like kind of some of what she can do, because I don't know if they'll do all of it, because she would be extremely like borderline Wanda level powers if they gave her everything. But it says she can transform herself into any form of energy within the electromagnetic spectrum, and she can like literally her whole body. And I don't know if they'll do that, because that would make her like kind of Captain Marvel and Wanda level. She'd pretty much be a god. But in other times she's been able to like travel at the speed of light. So I like that they're only giving us a taste of her powers now. And now that I'm saying that out loud, oh man, I'm excited for the next 2 episodes where we're going to get to see those powers really tested, because that's going to come in. And I just realized
I'm just expecting like scenes in Captain Marvel 2 where her and Carol are like playing around with their powers together. And then also, let's not forget that Miss Marvel is going to be in Captain Marvel 2 as well. And they just started filming Miss Marvel, because I saw 2 of the directors, the guys who did Bad Boys for Life, are on set on Miss Marvel right now.
Oh, okay.
Which is thrilling. But yeah, so this was what I was going to bring up next.
Go ahead.
So
wait, hold on real quick. And yes, this is what the Wikipedia page says, like literally anything on the electromagnetic spectrum. I don't think they're going to go that far, because it's one of those things that like powers are only defined as what you see and what you hear characters talking about. So I don't think they'll go full comic with it, because like I said, that would make her crazy OP. Anyway, let's go back to you, Kelly.
Although I wouldn't mind if she's crazy powerful.
I mean, no, I wouldn't either.
Right. So Monica is starting to get through to Wanda a little bit, and then Agnes notices and comes over. And, as soon as we saw that shot of Agnes snooping out her window, I was like, okay, it's happening. They're about to reveal more about who Agnes really is. She stops him. She stops the conversation and takes Wanda away. Yes. I think it is in... I'm not sure if it directly has to do with Hayward. I think it is currently in Agnes's or Agatha's best interest that the hex remains up.
This is kind of what I was speculating at the beginning, where I'm saying Hayward has more to do with Wanda being in the hex than we think. And maybe there was something that happened beforehand, and like Hayward gave Agnes the green light to go ahead and like start manipulating her, so she would pull Vision out and like bring him back to life. So I think the next 2 episodes are going to be extremely telling, clearly. But I think that there's going to be a lot more twists and turns coming as far as villains and motivation. And I think... Go ahead.
I think we're definitively done with the sitcom motif.
We'll see
know,
either that or next week it just completely shatters like in the middle of
I could see that. I could see next week being like jumping back and forth from all of the styles.
Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot.
But certainly with Modern Family, Office, etc., we've sort of reached.
There's not a new trope.
Well, I mean, you could argue like stuff like Fleabag and Atlanta and Barry are the modern trope where they're very like auteur-driven sitcoms that are basically dramedies, but that's kind of what WandaVision's been doing in its modern, like its non-sitcom scenes anyways, and I don't think there's enough clear visual language to play off of with those in a way that audiences would get what they're trying to do. I think the last 2 episodes are going to be very plot heavy, very focused on the MCU-ness of it, resolving Hayward and stuff, but I'm so excited. And I do think, there was this rumor that the last 3 episodes were an hour long each. Obviously, that wasn't the case. I think the last 2 will be, approaching the 45 minute mark.
I hope so.
Especially the last one, because I feel like there's still a lot to wrap up with only 2 episodes left.
And we still do. So we did get a kind of along the same lines. We did get Paul Bettany straight up coming out and saying the actor who he was so excited to work with was no one we've seen before. So it definitely wasn't.
That's the other. Yeah. So there is that character. I like this. So Agatha has been testing Wanda for some reason to see how she reacts. Yes. And we did see a quick shot of Dottie. Dottie played by Emma Caulfield. And when we first met her, I felt that she was going to be someone other than who she says she is or something more to her. I still think that could be the case because if we're playing a little bit of inside baseball, I know that Emma Caulfield was one of the casting decisions that Kevin Feige had to sign off on, which to me leads me to believe that she will be used in more ways in the MCU.
Yes.
I think obviously Elizabeth and Paul were already cast, but I think Monica, Agnes, and Dottie were the 3 that Kevin Feige were involved in, and then the rest, just the team of the show got to cast.
Yeah.
Do we think we'll get that secret 10th episode? No, I don't.
Yeah, it seems like they're...
Now, this I agree. I would love an animation segment, especially because we saw last week with that commercial how good they could do it. I still have...
We need to talk about this commercial.
This image in here because... So this week's commercial was about antidepressants.
Yeah, what a good time.
I am on antidepressants. I am no secret about that. They are a vital part of my everyday, and I generally find commercials for them offensive and obnoxious. And so this like satire of them made me really happy. So good because it laid it on so thick. And then I don't know if you paid attention to the side effects. And that's what always bothers me. Like pretty much every commercial for antidepressants is like side effects may include worse depression, suicide, bleeding anus. Yeah. So bleeding anus and like the physical stuff, there's always going to be those side effects. But you're telling me that I am dealing with a manic depressive episode. I'm being prescribed pills to help modulate my mood. And it could get worse. And it could make it worse and make me suicidal. I don't want to hear that.
Yeah, no, which is funny because I think that's one of the things that there are a lot of weird and especially, big pharma, different story. But I think they legally have to disclose. Yeah, Nexus. I think they legally have to disclose the side effects in the commercials, which is where you get that great satire here. And you're getting a lot of that meta-ness. And then it was like, I can't remember. It ends with it's like, and remembering that the world you created for around you wasn't just for you, or was it? And it's like,
which that so felt very meta.
Oh God, whole
more so maybe than any other commercial so far. This one felt specifically targeted to what Wanda was going through in this episode.
Yes, and I'm curious if we butt all the commercials up back to back to back to back, like because there's a bunch of Easter eggs, but it's like I'm also wondering how much it's like.
I'm almost wondering if in the last 2 episodes they're gonna like go back to the commercials and reveal things about them. I'm curious.
Maybe.
So this is a great point. So. When Jimmy was initially sent out to Westview, he was looking for one particular missing person.
I wonder if that could be Emma or Dottie.
Yeah, it could be. It could be anything. And this is true too. If you're paying attention to the beginning of the episode, the pills Wanda was taking could have been Nexus. Very possible.
Well, I don't know if it was beginning. I just watched it again, but she's taking pills right before Monica shows up. She's literally taking pills in the kitchen, and then Monica comes in. So, and Ralph is still missing, Brandy. Yes. That is correct.
Well, we've talked a lot about how we have never seen Ralph, and every time this gets brought up, I like to mention that on the one hand, I love it because it's the sitcom trope of a character you hear about and don't see. Maris and Frasier, Howard's mom in Big Bang Theory, Stan in Will and Grace.
I could never pull. I always wanted to think about the one from Home Improvement, and I couldn't pull Mr. Wilson.
Oh, the neighbor, Mr. Wilson. Yeah.
Mr. Wilson.
I think it works as that, but at the same time, I do think if Ralph is revealed to be someone else in the MCU or Jimmy's missing contact, whatever it is, they've spent enough time talking about Ralph that is a mystery or a reveal that I think would be logical.
Enough breadcrumbs. Before we talked about a lot of
this is
things.
Also possible that there isn't a Ralph. It's just a way to fit in, which would continue on with my theory of it also working perfectly as the unseen character sitcom trope.
I want to talk real quick because we haven't mentioned the kids at all yet.
Yes,
we talked about them a little bit, but I love that they're showing that their powers. We still don't know if the kids are real, if they're a figment of her imagination, but we do know.
And where are they now? What did Agatha do with them?
Exactly, but I want to talk specifically about. I don't remember which one had speed and which one had telepathy, but the one who has telepathy, where he's literally complaining to his mom, like I hear all these voices in my head, like I can't get them to stop. And then like a scene or two later, when he goes to Agatha, like he notes that he's being suppressed, and he's like, I like it here. It's quiet. And then he turns and he goes, You're quiet. And it's like, shit got dark. Yeah. Like it gets dark super quick. And it's with the kids. And then she turns, the performance of Catherine Hahn, where she's like, you see like a lot flash in her eyes, and then she turns it right
and
back
then
to
she gives the camera look, and then amazing. But yeah, the kids the kids are missing to a certain point. But let's talk about Catherine Hahn. The funniest line in the episode, and the funniest thing WandaVision has done thus far, is this.
That was that's pure Catherine Hahn.
She goes in there and she's like, let me take your kids off your hand, Wanda. And then she looks at the kids and they're a little trepidation. She goes, don't worry, I don't bite.
Thanks, Dave.
And then it cuts to this. I actually did bite a kid once, and her delivery and her look, I mean, it's just
the comedy.
Perfection.
Yeah, her timing is next
every
level.
aspect of her performance is perfectly calibrated.
Yes.
I mean, not a false note.
I want to know.
Remarkable.
This is going to be a tiny rant, and I'm sure Max will agree with me on this. This is one of the reasons why I will stand physical media forever, because I want to hear the fucking director's commentary. I want to hear the actor's commentary. I want to hear what they're doing in these episodes, because that would be like how much of this was scripted, how much was improv, because in something this tight, you can't get a lot of improv in.
So they had that show for The Mandalorian about the making of it, and for what it's worth, they did say they are doing one for WandaVision. I think the week after the last episode airs, or maybe the same day, they're starting a new series of MCU behind the scenes documentaries, and the first one will be about WandaVision. But to your point, like I desperately hope in a year or two, Disney puts Mandalorian and WandaVision out on 4K.
I was going to say,
I would buy the hell out of that.
We got a commentary for Palm Springs. I never thought we were going to see stuff like that, so it's possible.
Well, I understand when a TV show is streaming that it would take longer to make its way to physical media than, say, a network TV show,
sure,
or cable, because the revenue stream is about subscribers, and you need people to subscribe.
Yes,
and if something is available to purchase, a couple weeks later after it's done airing, you're going to lose subscribers. But, Netflix has put Stranger Things, the first 2 seasons, not the third yet, out on Blu-ray, and some other stuff. So, I think with Disney, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Even if they were to do limited runs, like I would love to own this show on
especially
Blu-ray or
because
4K.
Disney is all about making money, and that's just another way for them to make money.
Right. Like even Netflix shows, eventually the more popular ones end up on iTunes to buy the season for people who don't want to subscribe to Netflix, which, I don't think makes sense financially. But if you want to open, Catherine Hahn since Anchorman has really just been, this clip made its way around Twitter yesterday with all the Catherine Hahn talk, and it's her from the movie Bad Moms. I don't know if you've seen that, Dan.
I think it was the one with her and Kristen Bell.
But have you seen the movie?
I've seen. I don't know if I've
Bad
seen
Moms
the
Christmas.
One. I saw the Christmas one. I did see the
right, because the Christmas one was on Netflix, but the first one isn't.
Yes,
but it's a clip of Catherine Hahn using Kristen Bell's face and hoodie to show how to properly pleasure a cut versus an uncut penis. And even like the gusto and gravitas that she brings to that, she is such a dedicated performer. Like, welcome to the Catherine Hahn hour, ladies and gentlemen. We're here to talk about Catherine Hahn.
We stand hard.
What do you think happened with the twins? They were teasing Billy's telepathic power because too much for Billy, something about sacrifice. I think she's just, I think she put them somewhere out of the way. I think they're fine.
I agree.
Because I don't think Agatha is like a true supervillain. I think she has been testing the waters, playing around a little bit, and doesn't actually want to hurt anybody.
Sure.
But it is in her best interest for Wanda to keep the hex up. Do you think the twins come back as kids again or age up? No, I don't think so. I think it seems to me like they cast these kids to be them for a while.
Yeah.
Because I think, we're going inside baseball here again, but we've heard quite a bit about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. We know that Elizabeth Olsen is basically the co-lead of that to Benedict Cumberbatch. I would not be surprised to see Catherine Hahn, Evan Peters, and the twins in that movie.
Sure.
People have been saying, like, is there going to be season 2 of WandaVision? And I'm like, well, I think Doctor Strange 2 is going to effectively be season 2 of WandaVision, because I think whatever happens in the final episode will directly cause the arc of Doctor Strange 2, as well as whatever's going on with Spider-Man 3, because we've heard all this stuff about how Alfred Molina is back as Doc Ock. I heard a rumor that Willem Dafoe was on set.
Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield.
Tobey and Andrew Garfield, all of this stuff. Jamie Foxx is back as Electro. So I think that multiverse is going to have something to do with Wanda and Agnes's stuff over these last 2 episodes.
And I was going to say, we got 2 more episodes to see where, because I think this is, and that's something we've touched on a little bit, but we haven't gone into full bore, which is, full
bore. I like that phrase.
Thank you. It's the end of when Infinity Saga ended, when you got Endgame, and then a little bit was the Spider-Man one after that, was Spider-Man 2 Far From Home shortly after Endgame.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so we got Endgame, Far From Home, and that was it. This is the next thing we've gotten.
And that's kind of, it was PJ all along.
It was PJ all along.
So there's such a hard stop. Like, it's literally the end of a book or the end of a chapter when you have Endgame and Infinity Saga. It's over. It's done with. So
it's funny because Endgame feels like the final chapter, and then Far From Home almost feels like the epilogue. It's
an epilogue or a denouement, or it's like just a chaser. Like, it's just, this is a palate cleanser.
So I think this is something we actually talked about a couple weeks ago. That I don't disagree that it's very possible that Wanda was pregnant in Infinity War, because the line she says in Endgame that stands out to me to Thanos is, "You took everything from me." And I wouldn't be surprised if they go back to that line to reveal that she was pregnant. But I do think the kids will make it out of this okay. I think killing kids is too dark for Marvel. I mean, theoretically, they did it with the snap, but it's different because they came back.
And that's like in the ether too. Like, you're not like, you weren't directly showing children evaporating. Like, you were seeing a lot of things evaporating, but
yeah, this is very true too. I mean, they're not done shooting Doctor Strange 2. Plenty of time to reveal the rest of the cast.
To finish where I was going with that, so like Endgame was a hard stop, and that's like you're needing a way. And I think WandaVision was, I'm glad they kind of pivoted, and this is you another silver lining. Like, with COVID, they had to kind of restructure and figure out what they were doing. And I think WandaVision is a great starting point, because you're seeing things brought up in the MCU that they've never even touched on. You're getting introductions to the multiverse. You're getting that hex, and like, it's
great happy accident that WandaVision ended up as the first Disney Plus show and not Falcon and Winter Soldier.
That's the thing. Falcon and Winter Soldier, I'm going to binge every episode with my eyes.
And we're going to be doing this exact show about it every Saturday.
We also know that it's going to be
What's up, Joey? How's it going, bud?
We also know more or less that Falcon and Winter Soldier is going to be more of what we've seen. It's going to be these two cracking jokes doing action, whereas this is going to be a blast.
And that's one of the things I love about the MCU. But this is the mold.
This is brand new, breaking the mold. And this is, you can go back everything from, where would we in phase 5 now or phase 4? I can't remember. Everything that we're starting.
I think this is the start of phase 4.
They've done so many phases, but essentially this is the launching point, and they're giving you, they're showing you what is possible. And I think the great thing that this is doing is showing you fucking anything is possible. You're going to get, you don't even know what we're going to throw at you, which is why I love this show so much.
Yeah, and I'd also like to note, like, I think were some great movies or really good movies early on, but I think Ike Perlmutter not having any say over Marvel Studios and it being fully Kevin Feige's show is such a great advancement, particularly in his hiring practices, the type of characters we're seeing. Like, I don't know if Ike would have let Monica come into the fold like this because Ike is a racist piece of trash.
That's a show for another time.
Say it like it is. Another thing I wanted to note, if you guys, this is unrelated, if you guys follow the PJCN Twitter, starting next week with the water cooler chat, we're going to devote like 10 minutes of every episode just to talk a little bit about that week's episode of Superman and Lois. I know PJ and I are both really excited for that show. I'm sure Mike K will be happy to hear that because I know he is a big fan of all the CW DC shows. I haven't kept up with all of them. I'm trying to catch up on some that I am behind on, but Supergirl I love, and so I'm really excited for this show. So we won't go as deep into them because I don't think there will necessarily be as much, but we are going to talk about it for about 10 minutes.
Yeah, you do it in the beginning.
If we don't have a concurrent show, like so after Falcon and Winter Soldier, if there's not something, although I'm expecting Loki to pretty much go right after that. I don't think we'll do like specific episodes of this just for Superman and Lois, but as long as we're on the air, we're going to make some time to talk about it.
I think I saw Loki was going to be in May or June, so it is a little bit out.
Well, if Falcon and Winter Soldier is March and it's 6 episodes, it would probably only be a week or two in between.
Maybe we'll see. I mean, Disney Plus, man, they know how to impact that zeitgeist going from Mandalorian to WandaVision.
And we'll probably also talk a little bit about the Mighty Ducks show, just because it starts basically the same week as Falcon and Winter Soldier. That's
so good. That's great news. I don't know these scheduling things, and they make me very happy.
So just a little bit of housekeeping. We talked a lot about everything. We talked about Catherine Hahn, Tiana Paris, all the revelations. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we sign off here? Again, I saw Eric, who I'm sad isn't feeling well, say this was the best episode yet. I'm not sure if I feel that way. I think it's just been so consistent in quality.
Yes.
And I'm one of those people who is on board from day one. Like, some people are saying it's gotten so much better. I love those first episodes because of what they did. I really think this is going to be a season of television that when viewed in its entirety is going to be so perfectly structured and calibrated. There is such a distinct 3-act structure. The third episode ends with Monica being thrown out, and then we're revealed the outside world. The second act ends with Wanda extending the hex. And then it's like so perfectly calibrated, which is why 9 episodes actually is sort of perfect for
a 3-act structure.
A 3-act structure, because you get 3 episodes per act. That's why 13 episodes works too. Because you can divide it 4.
You throw an episode in somewhere extra.
4 and then 1 other, lingering around. But every week has just been a joy and a delight. And I saw someone, I'm not calling anyone out, but I saw someone say, Elizabeth Olsen is so good on WandaVision. I hope she gets the chance to star in a real TV show and not just Marvel stuff. And I'm like, I feel that's so dismissive. Like,
this is, and I think that has a lot to do with
I'm enjoying this as much as almost any show I've watched over the past few years. Don't twist my words, Marcus. This is the best show of the past few years, Maxwell, Marcus.
It's one of those things that I think you get a lot. And this was definitely, I would say 10, 15 years ago, that was very much the narrative. You're doing superhero work. You take that full Scorsese, like it's just popcorn. There's all fluff. And I think that we're really the atom is getting split so far down that you're going to start everyone thought the Heath Ledger Joker was an outlier, winning an Oscar posthumously for it.
Then Logan got a nomination. Black Panther was up for Best Picture. Joker, which I hate, but still was one Best Actor, and Scorn was up for Best Picture.
And that's where I'm going with it. Is like, I'm with you. I'm not a huge Joker fan, but it's one of those things where it's like these movies aren't going anywhere. This is literally a new genre. This is a westerns. This is a sci-fi. We've gone to comic book movies, and they are going to be one of those.
The superhero genre is the Western genre of our age.
They're legitimate, and the fact that people are being dismissive about them, they're not paying enough attention, because the work that's being done specifically in this series, and then a lot of those other things that we've mentioned, there's real hard work crafting, and sure, they are cash cows.
Well,
Go ahead.
And I would argue that this show in particular goes deeper than
Yes.
a lot of superhero stuff does.
For sure.
And the performances are as excellent and rich as any I've seen in television recently. So the notion of a real television show is ridiculous. I understand, like, how do you compare Avengers Endgame with Nomadland? I get that. They have such different goals. But I think to be so dismissive of what the show has been doing is a fool's errand. Yeah, this isn't, I'm afraid that by splitting the difference between drama and comedy, the series will fall through the cracks. But we've seen, like, over the past 5, 6, 7 years, the notion of what's comedy and what's drama has become increasingly muddled. Like Orange is the New Black throughout its run competed in 1 year in the drama category, 1 year in the comedy category. I think the buzz on this show has been so high, and the fact that it hit now and not in the fall because we're already halfway through the season, I think, and with Disney putting full PR behind it, I think it'll get the recognition it deserves.
I hope.
I would almost advocate for them to put it in the comedy category because I think
I know where you're
going. Comedy is weaker right now than drama, at least in terms of awards. I'm not saying that as a blanket statement opinion wise, but when you look at the shows that are getting nominated for, Schitt's Creek is done, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, I don't know if it's going to have a season this year. Fleabag is done. Atlanta's not going to have a season this year. But drama has had a lot of great stuff, whereas comedy has been a little thinner in this awards season.
I can't remember a few years ago where something got nominated for best comedy or musical at the Golden Globes, and everyone
The Martian.
was like, that's what it was. That that laugh riot, The Martian.
And look, The Martian has some real funny stuff in it, but that movie is not a comedy. It's far more a drama than a comedy. But if they were to submit this in comedy, I would not think it's category fraud.
And it's one of those things too. It's setting yourself up for success, and you see that happen a lot of times where you could call it an awards baity movie, but it's one of those things where it's like
Ally McBeal was constantly caught in between it. I would argue Atlanta and Barry, like, they're competing in comedy, but they're as much dramas as they are comedies. And then Succession, which I think is brilliant and won best drama, is as funny as any of these comedies. So
I mean, Anton, I would say
and to that point, most of these episodes are 30 minutes.
And I would say just somewhat. The only thing about that is once you get the inception of streaming really breaking that mold where you don't have to fit everything into a 21 or 22 minute runtime versus a 42-minute runtime, then you have a little bit more playing, and there's a lot more.
If I'm not mistaken, Cobra Kai submitted itself in comedy categories.
Yeah, and it was
because of its runtime.
Roughly 30 for all of them.
And I would not necessarily call Cobra Kai a comedy, but I do think it's like enough in the blend where I'm not like, really, or that's a comedy. Like, okay, so we'll see.
Going back to where we were saying before is I think that this series is they're accomplishing so much with such a little amount. This series is so dense. And it's really sad to see somebody shortchange it and say that and try to discount it, that they're saying that, like, oh, I hope they get to do a real TV show. This is where the future's going, kids. Like, we're in 15 plus years of these being taken very seriously.
Yeah. And I agree with this. I not only that, but I also thought Patrick Stewart should have been nominated.
They were Logan. Both fantastic.
Logan is one of my absolute favorite movies of the last decade. It might even be my favorite superhero movie. If we call it that.
Is he going to quote that? Are we seeing the quote? Maxwell Haddad.
Might even be. It would certainly be top 3.
Sure.
I think that movie is incredibly good. And to see it get that screenplay nomination did put at least the respect on it deserved. Because if you look at the history of the Oscars, there's a lot of movies that'll only get a screenplay nomination. And that's basically saying we respect your movie, but it's a little too out there or weird for us to fully embrace it.
Yeah. That was them throwing it a bone. You could tell. Yeah. It was like, hey, we see you. You're not quite ready yet, which is a pity because then you have like.
And then Black Panther got,
so much.
Although I do think Michael B. Jordan should have got a supporting actor nomination for Black Panther to really round it out.
Yeah, there's a lot you can go back. I don't remember whether we talked about this on Ramble On recently or if it was off air, but that's one of the reasons that the Best Picture got bumped up from 5 to a possible 10 was because of The Dark Knight and all the backlash.
And that's why I think they need to stick to a definitive 10 instead of a roaming
7 some years, 9 some years,
It doesn't make any sense to me. It should be 10. 10.
Sure.
Look, you can't just call for quotes. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Too bad. I called for it.
So yeah, look, another great episode. I watched it twice. I watched the Agatha All Along sequence like 4 or 5 times. And you know, I don't know if you know, but every week they've been putting the soundtracks out on Spotify. But like, so it comes a week late. So like episode 7 released this week, but the soundtrack of episode 6 released this week. So next week when episode 8 drops, the soundtrack for 7 will release. You better believe I'm going to be listening to Agatha All Along.
Just on a loop.
And again, like I said earlier, I really think and hope that can win an Emmy. Daphne Keane was amazing.
For sure.
And if they are open to bringing in Fox X-Men actors in the MCU, honestly, they want to do Wolverine, just bring in Daphne Keane. Yeah. She's also really good on the His Dark Materials show on HBO. That whole movie, Logan, honestly, I may watch that today because I'm so jazzed about Logan, because that movie is just fantastic. Yes. Logan, yes, let's watch it. Yes. Tonight, 3:30 a.m., the Australian Open's men's finals. Novak Djokovic versus Medvedev. See you there.
Bless you. God bless you.
Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
I think we've pretty much.
Any final questions or comments in the chat? Yeah. Get them in now before we say goodbye.
We've really been. This is one of those ones. I'm very happy I got a chance to come on and talk about. I mean, I'm sad we don't have more people.
Really, you're very happy. This is my reaction.
And you should. That's going to be your avatar from now on. Just
honestly, I should make this my
just gymming it avatar. Up for.
But like this, like I just so powerful.
Yes. I did.
And also, I don't know if you could see because of my lighting, but the newest addition to my wall here is a WandaVision piece by the great Jason Palmer. I love that it's shaped like a hex.
Perfect.
He still has them for sale. It's only $15 print 10x10. It's called Very Unusual Couple, or whatever that phrase is.
Nice.
Yeah, big fan of Jason Palmer.
Do you rotate your stuff so you like put stuff up, take it down, or just pretty much stay up?
Well, I have this, so this has nothing to do, but like because we only moved not that long ago, so I have this whole wall of stuff I still have to put up.
Oh, cool.
That was up in the old house that's still sitting in a box.
Gotcha.
But there is some stuff I'm gonna have to keep in a closet, and I probably will start rotating.
Sure.
Because in the old house I had all art here, but I decided here to have this shelf and then the bookshelf. So there's less space for art, but I have this whole side wall, so you won't be able to see it necessarily as much on camera. But I got to do that. I've just been lazy.
It's for you. That's the important thing.
Well, that's the thing. When my parents came to see the new place with masks, don't worry, we're all safe. And I was like, I'm so sorry we haven't put the art up yet. They're like, we don't care. Art is for you, not for your guests. Put that shit up when you're ready.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
I don't see questions, but like this is I'm so happy.
Not today, but certainly we could do that in the near future.
Yeah.
I agree with this. Yeah. So I went to theaters, the Alamo Drafthouse, to see Logan Noir, which is the black and white version, and there was a simulcast Q&A with James Mangold, who, by the way, I think is one of the best journeyman filmmakers.
And I'm so excited he's doing now.
Indiana Jones.
Yes. Indy 5.
I don't know if I necessarily, if you had said to me, they're making another Indiana Jones, Steven Spielberg isn't doing it, who would you pick? I might have said Gore Verbinski, just because I think what he did with the Pirates movies is so perfect. But when I heard it was James Mangold, I was like, yes, bravo.
You're like, I'm not mad about it.
He's never made a bad movie, and he's worked in so many genres. Ford vs. Ferrari, Logan, Walk the Line, Copland. This dude has been crushing it for a long time, and much like Spielberg, anytime you hear anyone talk about Mangold, who's on the inside, he is, by all accounts, one of the nicest, kindest directors to work with, who creates a very welcoming and inclusive set. And I think that's the sort of thing Spielberg does. So I think, assuming the movie actually happens, which I do think it will.
Yep.
Mangold's a great choice, and I'm really excited to see that.
Any
final comments in the chat?
This last 10 minutes of the water cooler has been brought to you by Ramble On About Movies.
Look, we're very bad at keeping on topic here at PJCN, but we also haven't lost any viewers over the last 10 minutes.
I'm claiming anytime we go off topic that long, I'm claiming it.
That's fine. Take it. This brought to you by Ramble On About Movies.
Catch us Thursdays at 5 Pacific.
Yeah, but I still think the Wolverine is solid.
And I haven't seen I've seen the Wolverine like while I was working, so I didn't get to sit down and watch everything. It still looked really good, and I've heard the third act was very much like studio being like, "No, this is your third act," and he had not as much control over it. Oh my God, Mike! I love everything about what you just said.
Yeah, I still think the Wolverine's really solid. I agree but I think all the stuff in Japan plays beautifully. I think it's certainly a marked improvement over X-Men Origins.
Yeah, sure.
So,
clearly.
yeah.
But yeah, so that's WandaVision episode 7, y'all.
Yeah.
Great movies.
Yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you had fun. We'll be back next week for more talk about WandaVision. I think PJ will be back, but I don't really care one way or another because it was PJ all along. Couple notes. Tomorrow night, the Unwind is going to be focused on theme parks. It's going to be a lot of fun. I love theme parks. I miss them so much. Join us for that. Amber Coates will be joining us from Let's Get Ready. I know Teresa and James will probably be here. I think Eric said he might join for his first Unwind because he wanted to talk theme parks. PJ, Sully, the whole gang. So that'll be a blast. Monday night, double feature watch along of Eddie the Eagle and Cool Runnings. We will probably start that at least an hour earlier than our normal time, maybe 90 minutes. So we're not going too late, but stay tuned to our Twitter for a time announcement on that. And Wednesday, Suddenly Soundtracks Pop Punk. I'm really excited to do this. We had to postpone last week because of the issues in Texas. One of our panelists was in Texas, and we didn't want to do it without him.
Correct.
And yes, Chris Clark did put Nirvana on this. They are not pop punk. It makes me laugh every time. Finally, thank you so much to our patrons. We wouldn't be here without you. We couldn't do this without you. Your continued support is incredible. Whatever the opposite of this look is what I have for our patrons. Dan, where can everyone find you online?
The antithesis of the gymming of the camera. I think that's the technical term. You can find me on all the places at Ohhi Dan Nye, OHHI Dan Nye, because that's just greeting people. Max, where do people find you when you're not on the PJCN?
Twitter and Letterboxd at Cinemaxwell, Instagram at Cinemaxwell Inc. And you can find me here on the PJCN. And like I said, I'm pretty sure Chris Clark is doing a big Mario Party thing at 7:00 Eastern tonight, I think, earlier in the day.
And there's also one other thing I don't think you've mentioned yet. We will be getting episode 5 at some point soon.
6, you mean?
No, I'm talking. Is it 6? 5's been aired. Yes, so 6.
Oh, yeah, I didn't put the thumbnail in, but episode 6 of Box will release Tuesday for everyone. Patrons will hopefully get it a day or two before that. It's called Heart-Shaped Box. Our guests are Sabrina Ramirez and Brandon Hanna. And as I said last night on our watch-along, it is by far our most explicit episode.
It's going to be wild.
I wouldn't call any episode of Box for kids. I think it's generally been a TV MA show. But this definitely
not suitable for work. Not suitable for work.
No, this episode is not safe for work. Please make sure you watch this in a safe space because I think the guest segment in particular is maybe the funniest thing we've ever done on Box, but it's wild.
Yes.
So that's our disclaimer. We will see you guys next time. Thank you so much. Stay safe. Wear your masks. And have a great weekend.
Bye.
Unusual couple,
Oh, I don't think that was ever in question.
At last,